Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever found yourself in that situation where someone just absolutely refuses to listen,
Oh, definitely.
especially when you're trying to tell them something, for their own good, or maybe for the whole group's benefit?
Yeah.
It can be so frustrating, right?
It's a classic human thing, isn't it?
Okay.
And, it might feel like a very modern problem, maybe amplified by social media or something, but really, this challenge of individual stubbornness, it's as old as communities themselves.
Right.
What's really fascinating, though, is looking at how some, well, ancient traditions tackled it, specifically Buddhist monastic rules.
Oh, that sets us up perfectly. So
Yeah.
today we're taking a deep dive into this really intriguing bit from a foundational text of Buddhist monastic discipline. It's called Saṅghādisesa 12.
Mm-hmm.
And this ancient rule, well, the story behind it is just as important. It gives us these incredible insights into like community governance, accountability,
Yeah.
and the kind of, well, surprisingly human challenges that pop up even in these very spiritual settings.
Absolutely. Our source material, it lays out this specific incident, the one that actually led to this rule being created. It doesn't just describe the bad behavior, the transgression.
Right.
It also details this incredibly careful, meticulous process for dealing with it. So our mission today really is to pull out those nuggets of wisdom,
Okay.
to help you understand how this ancient community navigated internal conflict, how they kept things together, and hopefully you'll get a much deeper appreciation for the really nuanced thinking in these old codes.
And it kicks off with a story that honestly feels kind of relatable even today. The source puts us in Kosambi at a place called Gositarama.
Right.
The Buddha himself was staying there. And we get introduced to this particular monk, Yasma Channa.
Channa, yes.
And he apparently started engaging in what the text calls improper behavior. The term is anakkara akarati.
Yes, anakarta.
Yeah.
And the first thing that happened, as you might expect in, a functioning community, was that other monks, the bhikkhus, they tried to, well, correct him gently. They went up to him and said something like, "Do not, Venerable Channa, act like this. It's not fitting." Pretty straightforward.
Simple, clear. But this is where it gets really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you'd think, okay, spiritual community, gentle correction, maybe pause and reflect.
You would think.
But Channa's response was, well, not exactly humble. He shot back, and this is basically, quote, "Why do you, venerables, think you can instruct me? I should be instructing you."
Wow.
He goes on, "Our Buddha, our Dhamma, the Dhamma,
Yeah.
has been comprehended by our venerables," meaning himself.
Yeah, it's dripping with ego, isn't it? It's not just ancient history. It feels like a timeless example of someone, even in that setting, just rejecting feedback and saying, "I know better."
Totally. Undermining the whole group dynamic right there.
And he didn't even stop there. To really hammer home his point, to sort of dismiss their right to speak to him and all, he uses these really vivid analogies. He compared the other monks to, like, a strong wind just gathering up random stuff, grass, wood, leaves, trash.
Seriously, crash.
Yeah. Or like a river collecting shells, algae, leaves. His point was basically that they were just this random, haphazard collection of people.
Wow, that's quite the put down.
He literally says they were just gathered from various names, various families, various castes, various clans, implying they were just a mixed bag, totally unworthy to advise him.
Doubling down on his own superiority, that takes some serious, well, ego.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
And predictably, it didn't sit well. The text mentions the Apicca bhikkhus. These were the monks known for having few desires, the more conscientious ones.
The serious practitioners.
Exactly. They were really displeased. They basically asked, how could Channa make himself unadvisable? Especially when they were speaking to him according to the Dhamma, the core teachings, the truth of their practice.
It struck at the heart of their discipline.
Right. It undermined the very foundation of how they operated together.
So naturally, this couldn't just be ignored. I assume it got escalated.
It did. The matter was reported straight to the Buddha.
Okay.
And when the Buddha confronted Channa, asked him about it, Channa just confirmed it. No denial.
Disarmed it.
Pretty much. And the Buddha's reaction was, well, sharp. He called Channa a Mogapuriza.
Which means?
It translates roughly as foolish man or empty man. It's a strong rebuke.
Ouch.
And the Buddha then explained why it was so bad. He said, this kind of behavior, it does not lead to the confidence of those without it, nor an increase in confidence in those who already have it.
So it's about the impact on the whole community's reputation and trust.
Exactly. It's that ripple effect. When someone in a position like that acts out, it doesn't just reflect badly on them. It can shake people's faith in the entire group, the entire tradition.
Makes sense. It's not just about one monk being difficult, it's about the integrity of the Sangha.
Precisely.
So, given this defiance, this ripple effect, what happened next? How did they make sure this kind of thing didn't just keep happening and pulling things apart?
Well, that brings us right back to Saṅghādisesa 12. This whole incident with Channa, it directly led to this rule being formally laid down.
So the rule was created because of him.
Yes. It specifically addresses a bhikkhu who is dubbacajātiko.
Dubbacajātiko, meaning?
Obstinate, hard to admonish, someone who gets impatient, doesn't take instruction respectfully. You know the type.
I think we all do, unfortunately. And the specific offense here.
It's when this kind of monk makes himself unadvisable when he's being spoken to by other monks in accordance with the Dhamma.
So according to the core principles.
Right, and specifically about the training rules in the Patimokkha.
Which is their main code of conduct.
Yeah.
The one they recite.
Exactly. So it's not about just any casual disagreement. It's about refusing correction on the fundamental rules of their shared life.
Got it. And you mentioned the rule itself reflects Channa's words.
Almost perfectly. It actually defines making oneself unadvisable by quoting the kind of thing Channa said. Do not, venerables, say anything to me, good or bad. I, venerables, will not say anything to you, good or bad. Venerables, desist from addressing me.
Wow. They literally codified his defiance.
Yeah, they did. It's fascinating, isn't it, how a specific negative example became the basis for the general rule.
It really is. But what's maybe even more fascinating is the process they set up. It wasn't just, okay, you did this, you're out. It sounds like there were steps.
Oh, absolutely. A very structured step-by-step process. It starts quite informally. Any monks who witness this kind of behavior, they're told to speak to the difficult monk directly, one-on-one or in a small group.
Okay, makes sense. Start small.
And they're even given specific words to use for this initial admonition.
Really? What were they supposed to say?
Something along the lines of, do not, venerable, make yourself unadvisable. Rather, make yourself open to advice. You too, venerable, should speak to the bhikkhus in accordance with the Dhamma, and the bhikkhus will speak to you in accordance with the Dhamma.
So emphasizing the two-way street.
Exactly. And then comes this crucial line. For it is by mutual admonition and mutual raising up that the Blessed One's assembly grows.
Mutual admonition and mutual raising up. I like that. It frames accountability as a collective, constructive thing.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's not just about pointing fingers. It's about helping each other grow and keeping the community healthy.
Okay, so they try this gentle, prescribed approach.
Sure.
What if it doesn't work?
Well, it's not just a one-shot deal. They're supposed to repeat this admonition a second time and, if needed, a third time.
Giving him multiple chances.
Right. Now, if after the third informal attempt, the monk still doesn't change his ways, he incurs what's called a dukkata.
Dukkata. That's like a minor offense, a wrongdoing.
Yeah, think of it as a formal demerit, a recognized misstep. But here's another interesting bit. Collective responsibility.
How so?
If other monks hear about this obstinate behavior going on and they don't speak up, they don't try that initial admonition, they also incur a dukkata.
Wow. So silence isn't an option. Bystanders have a duty to intervene.
It really emphasizes that maintaining standards is everybody's job. You can't just look the other way.
That's quite a powerful mechanism for community cohesion. Okay, so informal tries, minor offense. What if the monk still digs his heels in?
Then it escalates. The matter has to be brought before the entire Sangha, the full formal assembly of monks.
The whole community gets involved.
Yes. And in front of everyone, that same admonition, don't make yourself unadvisable, is repeated again, up to 3 times.
In public, basically. That adds a layer of social pressure, I imagine.
Definitely. And if that still doesn't yield results, if the monk continues to resist,
Then what?
then they initiate a formal Sangha act called Samanubhāsana. Think of it as a formal community intervention process, codified.
Samanubhāsana, okay.
It starts with a competent, qualified monk formally informing the Sangha through what's called a ñāti. That's like a formal motion or proposal, just the act of making that motion official. That itself incurs a dukkata for the obstinate monk. The stakes are rising.
So each step of resistance brings a slightly more serious consequence.
Exactly. After the ñāti, there are 2 formal announcements called kamavaka, recited before the assembly. While these formal announcements are being read out, the monk, if he's still being defiant, incurs a thulakaya,
Which is?
a more serious offense than a dukkata. A grave offense, sometimes translated, we're moving up the scale.
Okay, so motion, announcements, increasingly serious offenses.
Yeah.
What's the final step if he still won't comply?
If, after the completion of those 2 formal announcements, the bhikkhu still hasn't yielded, hasn't agreed to be open to advice,
Yes.
then he incurs the full Saṅghādisesa offense.
The big one. The one the rule is named after.
That's the one. It's a very clear, deliberate, and you could say patient escalation process.
It really is. So what exactly is a Saṅghādisesa offense? What does it entail?
Well, the name itself gives a clue. Sangha means the community. Adisas relates to something remaining or requiring further action. So it's an offense that needs the formal involvement of the Sangha, the whole community.
Right.
Both for its initial determination, deciding it has been committed, and for the process of rehabilitation afterwards. It's not something a monk can just sort out on his own.
So it implies a period of probation or specific practices supervised by the community.
Exactly. It's a serious matter requiring communal oversight to resolve. It signifies a significant breach of the discipline that holds the community together.
And you mentioned nuance earlier. Does the rule consider, like, the monk's state of mind? What if he genuinely thinks the community is wrong?
It does, which is quite sophisticated, I think. It lays out different levels of culpability based on understanding.
Okay.
If the bhikkhu knows it's a valid process, a valid act according to the Dhamma, and he still refuses to comply, that's the full Saṅghādisa.
Clear defiance.
Right. But if he's doubtful, if he's genuinely unsure whether the admonition or the process is valid according to the rules, then it's considered a dukkata, the lesser offense.
Interesting.
And similarly, if he actually believes it's an invalid act, maybe he thinks the monks applying the rule are doing it wrong, that's also treated as a dukkata.
So it distinguishes between willful obstinacy and genuine confusion or disagreement about procedure.
Precisely. It shows they weren't just focused on the outward act, but also on the internal state, the intention behind the resistance.
That adds a whole layer of, well, psychological understanding to it. Are there any other exceptions?
Yeah.
Situations where the rule doesn't apply?
Yes, the text lists what are called anapati cases of non-offense.
Okay, like?
Well, someone who wasn't actually part of the formal admonition process isn't held liable. Someone who does comply, obviously, isn't penalized.
Makes sense.
It also exempts someone considered mad or mentally incompetent.
Right, basic fairness.
And interestingly, it explicitly exempts the adhikamakasa, the first offender, basically, the person whose actions originally led to the rule being created.
So, fair enough.
Exactly. Channa himself wouldn't have been subject to Saṅghādisesa for the actions that caused the rule to be written.
So rules weren't applied retroactively.
Seems that way. He was the catalyst, the case study, but the rule applied going forward.
You know, stepping back from the specific details, this whole thing, it feels like it's about so much more than just ancient monastic rules.
Oh, absolutely. These are universal principles playing out.
That phrase really sticks with me. Mutual admonition and mutual raising up.
Yes.
The Buddha emphasized that as crucial for the community's growth. It highlights how vital feedback, accountability done right, is for any group to thrive, wouldn't you say?
Without a doubt. It's about collective responsibility. It's not just up to the leaders. Everyone plays a part in upholding the shared values and helping each other stay on track.
And the structure itself is remarkable. This, graduated system for dealing with conflict and defiance.
It is. Moving carefully from informal chats to increasingly formal community interventions. It's not a rush to judgment. It's measured.
It shows a really nuanced grasp of human behavior too, right?
Yeah.
Recognizing intent, providing clear steps. It feels designed to maintain harmony and order in a very thoughtful way.
It really does. It's a testament, I think, to the practical wisdom embedded in these ancient codes. They were clearly trying to build a functional community that valued both, well, individual integrity and the cohesion of the group.
So thinking about it all, from Channa's, frankly, quite arrogant words, to this incredibly detailed Saṅghādisesa rule, we've really seen how an ancient spiritual community grappled with challenges that feel very timeless. Ego, stubbornness, refusing advice.
Exactly. And this deep dive, I think it really hammers home that just knowing about this stuff isn't the main thing. It's understanding it, seeing how it might apply.
Yeah.
The wisdom here isn't just, historical trivia. It offers some profound insights for fostering environments today that are accountable, harmonious.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
For any group, we're part of a family, maybe. A team at work, any organization, really.
Yeah.
How do we strike that balance between, individual autonomy, letting people be themselves, and the collective good, the needs of the group?
It's the perennial question.
And when someone does make themselves, as the text says, unadvisable, what's the group's responsibility? How do we ensure there's still effective communication, accountability,
Right.
and ultimately that the whole group can still flourish? It's definitely something worth mulling over.